mechanics, whatever. And by the time it's done, I mean, your kid is going to be so well-rounded in all these different aspects of life that schools don't teach at all. I mean, look at finances now. It's a disaster. It always has been a disaster. Now it's just worse.
Yeah.
And then when it's over, the piece of real estate gets sold. Everybody gets their dispersion of money, and hopefully, I mean, the real estate always goes up. They're going to make money. Yeah. What do you think of that?
They're not making any more land. Yeah, I think it sounds like a great idea. Here's what I'll say. Like I always try to be careful when I talk about educational options, because I realize that there are parents in situations where it's like, look, we are fighting to keep it, make ends meet. We take one income out of the pot, and we're in a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. So my biggest problem has always been this idea that we're supposed to, that again, the government's coming in and telling everybody, this is the ideal way to educate children. Mm-hmm. Well, you're doing a bang up job. I think that most services, because that's what education is, it's a service, work better when the people that are using the service have options in accordance with what the objectives are. So, for instance, with a student, you kind of have two customers. You have the child and you have the parents. The child's the one that's getting the benefit of the service, but the parents have a guardianship and a responsibility over that child to make sure that the service that they are getting is actually equipping them. We don't see that anymore, right? Anymore, it's like, no, it's the government's job to educate my kid. That's why I pay taxes. Nope, it's yours. And whether you're rich or whether you're poor, I'm sorry, the responsibility doesn't go away. It's still yours. Now, if you choose to team with the public school system in order to do that, you may have to, right? It may be the only thing that you can afford. What I would say is please don't then say, well, this is it. Now, I would tell you this. I think socialization is actually the worst reason to send your children to public school. If you're sending your child to public school because they have a lot of resources with respect to, I don't know, a computer lab or a music lab or whatever it is, or sports and stuff like that you can't replicate somewhere else that you think is important, totally understand. Maybe they have teachers at that school that you really, really like. Totally get it. Whenever my wife always got asked the question about socialization, she'd always look at someone and she goes, have you ever had a puppy? Yeah. Did you train and socialize your puppy by keeping it exclusively with other puppies? No. Yeah. She goes, the public school model does not replicate real life. It is the only part of your life that you will ever be running into locations based exclusively off of your age group and said, these are now your peers. In that class of 25 kids, you'll have some kids that are reading this percentile, sometimes that are reading this. You'll have some with mental health issues. You'll have some with learning disabilities. You have all this stuff in this one class. Those are your peers. Why? Well, because age-wise and geographically, they live closest to the building. That doesn't make sense. Well, what are their objectives for education? Well, it doesn't matter because the state's already decided that these are the objectives for education. So here's all I would say. Just remember, public school, and I don't mean this to sound like nefarious or mean, it's a practical reality. Public school was not made with your child in mind. Public school was made with the mass production of education in mind. So you're going to get a mass-produced product. When it comes to, okay, so what's the alternative to that? I mean, you can dream up 1,000 different ones. You just came up with, or you guys have just been talking about one that makes an incredible amount of sense. We did one that was a combination of homeschool and then also a co-op. So our kids 1 day a week would go and they would, go to certain classes, especially on subjects that we didn't feel competent to train them on. I mean, you throw an Algebra 2 book at me and that might as well be Egyptian hieroglyphics, right? Like I don't know. Stop putting letters in my math, right? But here's what I would say. I think it can be a very intimidating thing for parents, but remember that it's an intimidating thing in part because there's a whole industry which profits and benefits from you believing that this is completely beyond your capability. It isn't. People have been educated for centuries without the current public school model that we have within the United States. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. I don't care if it's a public school. I don't care if it's a private school. almost all of those institutions, some private schools are a little bit better about this, but almost all those institutions are going to be getting their pool of teachers from the same place, and that's the university system.